We're actually looking at the bottom of the Premier League table here. Giants like Manchester United and Tottenham, 13th and 14th place, respectively, as they get ready to square off at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this weekend. Only 2 points separating them. And I just want to tell you, as a father of three, I identify with that move by Ange Tottenham, yes, rubbing his hands in his face, just the frustration there. Let's get a preview from this matchup from our man James Benge.
When Ruben Amorim took over as Manchester United manager in November, he would surely have identified this weekend's trip to Tottenham not only as a crucial game in the battle for a European place, but perhaps even for a 4th or 5th place berth that might get these teams into the Champions League. It's ended up being nothing of the sort. Since Amorim's appointment in the Premier League, these teams have taken a combined 25 points, 14 to United, 11 to Tottenham. That 25, that's the same that Bournemouth have got. And Bournemouth are in the Champions League mix. United, Spurs, they're merely hoping to avoid the most humiliating season they could think of. If results go against them this weekend, either of these teams could slip down to 16th. And although they're not going to get dragged into a true relegation battle, they're nowhere near the bare minimum benchmark for each of these teams this season. There will be questions asked of Ruben Amorim if he doesn't win, because the results have not been going well for Manchester United. But I think the pressure is even greater on Ange Postecoglou. He would say, and he's right to say, that no team has battled an injury crisis in their defence quite like Spurs have over recent months. That is beginning to ease. And yet results are not improving for Tottenham. The system looks all a mess. Their press is nothing like as intense as it used to be. And they are tired, and that is understandable. But the Tottenham supporters are tired too. For now, their ire, and the ire you will doubtless hear at the Spurs Stadium, will be directed at Daniel Levy. But it's only so long that Postecoglou can afford to lose big games, and this is a big game, before the pressure turns on the Aussie, and perhaps Tottenham think they have to make a change in the dugout.
Of course, the Aussie might have turned some of that pressure on himself with that comment about winning trophies in a second year. He's dropped out of some cup competitions here of late. When you look at those last 5 results, got knocked off by Aston Villa in the FA Cup, at Liverpool in the Carabao Cup. They're still alive in Europa League, but they got to get some guys back. As James Benge said, they're starting to finally get some players healthy. And maybe this past week for Ange Postecoglou delivered a little bit of a respite.
This has been probably one of your best weeks the whole season, because you've had a chance to.
We haven't had a game.
We haven't had a game, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't lost. Yeah, it's been a decent week, yeah. Fair to say.
I wasn't going to mention the losing, but you know.
That's all right.
But in all seriousness, do you feel like your old self again? Because there have been times the last few weeks whereby
I've been grumpy.
You've been a little bit grumpy, yeah.
Fair enough too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
It's like I've had to do this 3 times a week, sometimes on 0 sleep. Cut me a little bit of slack. I mean, I can't be bubbly and cheery all the time. No, look, I fair to say, I appreciated the fact there wasn't a game this week. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I had dinner with my family last night. My boy said, "It seems like you haven't had a game for a while, Dad. It's only been 4 days, but." That's the cycle we've all been in, and not just me, the other coaches. It's certainly, when you're going at it all the time, you do get into this cycle where it does become a bit of a grind, but you have to do it. There's no alternative. I can't not do things that I'm responsible for. So having the opportunity of, like I said, even this, not having to front up, 2 or 3 times and kind of answer the same kinds of questions allows you to sort of just take a breath, and hopefully I'm back to whatever I was before. But
you do feel like a new man.
I'm the same man. I feel like the same man I've always been, and I'm sure that grumpiness will emerge at the appropriate time if it needs.
Not a Spurs fan, but I'll say that I'm rooting for Spurs because I don't want Ange Postecoglou to get fired. No, that's such refreshing honesty in a press conference that you usually get coach speak. Ange Postecoglou, man, I'm a huge fan. That line at the beginning where it's like, yeah, it's a pretty good day, pretty good week. We haven't had a game, so we haven't lost. I mean, that's just great stuff. For a manager that's clearly been struggling this season with the results, love to see that from Ange, so I'm rooting for him.
I am a Celtic fan, and I watch what he did in the Scottish Premier League. That's a different animal. I understand that. But when his team is winning, he's a character. You know, he's got some personality, and his players play with personality and an attacking prowess as well. There's no possible way for them to play that way right now. And I understand that there are injury problems all over the board across the Premiership. But as James said, nobody's dealing with injuries the way that Tottenham have. They've got some players that have been returning to training, but haven't returned to the pitch yet. How big is that going to be for them once they finally get some of these big names back?
I mean, you hope that it's just not too late, right, when they do finally get those players back. But, I mean, there was a couple of games where they were starting – they had like 3 18-year-olds in the starting lineup because of all these injuries, especially on that back line where, I mean, you can't defend with some of these players when you're playing against top teams in this league and in Europe. It's very difficult for anybody to make up these type of injuries. James Maddison out. All of the defenders that have been out. It's been very tough for them. Like we said, you don't use it as an excuse, but at the same time, it's been extra bad for Spurs.
Okay, we talked about the comments that he made, the brash prediction of winning a trophy in the second year. For me, I think a little bit of slack. Do you really expect them to win at Aston Villa? Do you really expect them to win against Liverpool with the side that they have and all the injuries that they're dealing with? But all of a sudden, you start getting knocked off in these competitions, they're not going to win the Premier League. We understand that. I still think they have a chance at Europa League if they get their bodies back, but that pressure is mounting right now.
Yeah, and that's got to be the goal right now. Obviously, just to continue on in the Premier League and not get any lower than they are, so they're not in any trouble. Obviously, there is a gap there. But Europa League, if they start getting some players back, then maybe, okay, you could at least make a run and make it competitive and give Spurs fans something to look forward to, something to get excited about. Because we're still talking about one of the top clubs in England and in Europe as well with Tottenham Hotspur. You just need to have at least some of your players being able to come back to get to that level to be able to compete against these other teams, because currently with some of the injuries, it's just not much of a competition when you have so much turnover and such young players being forced into the starting lineup.
But as we heard from James, this man Ange is under more pressure because this is his second season at the helm. When you take a look at Manchester United and Ruben Amorim's side, that's a culture change that's happening right now. He was pushing what he thought were some bad apples out of the barrel to try to change the culture of this side. And the results, to be perfectly honest, haven't really gotten better since he took the helm. But maybe that's not the #1 priority. But he understands that the pressure is higher when you take a job at Manchester United.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan on Ange Postecoglou. Of course, I'm from a different culture. I'm Portuguese, and you know all the Portuguese coaches, they can adapt, and I adapt. The simple thing is that I use one system in the moment, because I believe if you work on that system, you can play in different system at the same time. So that is my idea. But we are not winning games, and I understand the connection between me and Ange. We have the same problems. In my opinion, with all due respect, I'm in a bigger club with a bigger pressure, so I understand the connection, and I think it's really important a coach to have to follow these principles.
You make anything of that comment? With all due respect, it's kind of like the Ricky Bobby thing. As long as you say with all due respect before, it doesn't matter what you say after. Yeah. It's a true story, though. Yeah. Manchester United has been a bigger club than Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Spurs fans, but all you got to do is look at the trophy cabinet, and that'll tell you what Manchester United is. Look, it's been difficult. It was always going to be difficult for Ruben Amorim in this season, coming in mid-year with a team that does a squad that is not ready to win the Premier League, not ready to compete at the highest level in the Premier League. They're obviously gotten rid of Rashford, get rid of Anthony. So that's only the start. This Ruben Amorim is going to have to really reshape this entire roster. It comes summertime, so you have to give a little bit of time for Ruben Amorim to be able to, not only to be able to play the way he wants to get the players in to be able to play the style that he wants to play and that has given him success this season. It's going to be a long process for Manchester United. They've had a lot of I don't want to say bad managers, bad management for over the last few years that have gotten them into this hole that it really now you don't really have a style, and right now they're just trying to piece together this team to find results however they can. It's not going to be Ruben Amorim style because they don't have the players to do that.
One of the things he spoke about there, he said, I'm Portuguese, we know how to adapt. The parallel that's being drawn by people is Ange comes in, he's got a system that he wants to play, he's married to that system, it's not working, he doesn't pivot off of the system. Amorim's being accused of doing the same thing. Let's try to play a system in a form that this roster that he's inherited might not be best suited to play. I do think it's a different story, though, because, again, this is his first year. And I believe when a manager comes into a new job, the first thing you have to get right is the culture. You got to get buy-in. You got to make sure that the players understand what the expectations are. And I don't think you waver. I think his point is, I can adapt and adjust, but the first thing I need to do is put my mark on what we are going to be as a side going forward. And I understand at Manchester United, the fans don't want to wait for results. But I got news for you if you're a Manchester United fan. This side right here is not good enough to win major trophies right now. So is it better for him to just kind of get the most out of what they can be this year? Or is it better to lay the groundwork for the side that he envisions for the future?
Manchester United, you can't just wait around, right? You need to find a way to get results. I think he's going to have to do as best he can with this squad. Like we said, it's not going to be a top squad, but this is a team that can still find ways to get results in the Premier League and in the, they're still round of 16 in Europa League as well. They can find ways to get results. I don't expect them to be competing for trophies at the end of this season. It's still possible in Europa League, but right now, because it's Manchester United, he can't just say, forget whatever system can get us games, I'm going to play my system, and whatever happens, happens. You can't do that at Manchester United. You need to find ways to get results. And he's going to have to do what he can. He's going to have to adapt his system and play however he can to find results with this current squad.
I don't think his job's in trouble this year.
No, he just got there.
Yeah.
I think that he's going to have the leeway and the time and a transfer window, a summer transfer window to be able to get the players he wants to play his style. His job isn't in trouble. But again, you never want to have that many losses on your resume if you're a top coach at the top club.
Doesn't matter where they are in the table. You know you want to watch this match. Tottenham and Manchester United coming up this week.